Welcome to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Chakras, and in today's video, what I wanted to do is give you guys an in-depth review of the Roland FP-30, which is in this box right here. This is easily one of the most requested items that you guys have asked me to review here on this channel, and I really can't think of another instrument that you guys have asked me to review more than the Roland FP-30. Before I made this video, I watched a few other videos that people have already posted online, and in one of them, somebody said that this and the P125 also have been selling like mad lately, and I would believe that based on how many people have asked me to review it so that they know whether or not it's a good keyboard to buy. So in today's video, what I'm going to be doing after I get it out of the box is I'm going to be giving you guys kind of a pianist's perspective of this instrument, and I'm going to be letting you know whether or not it is a good instrument to buy as perhaps a first piano. Is it a good instrument to use as a practice piano before you go out on stage to perform on a real piano, and things of that nature? There's a number of different elements to this instrument. I believe there's like a Bluetooth app you can use to control the sounds and stuff, and I'm not really going to be focusing on that. I'm going to be focusing on the pure piano playability aspect of this instrument. How good is it at being a practice instrument? Roland has 4 keyboards in the FP line. There's the FP-10, the FP-30, the FP-60, and the FP-90. The FP-10, the 30, and the 60 all use the same exact action, but they all have a varying degree of features. The FP-10 has the least, and the FP-60 has the most. The FP-90 has even more features than the FP-60 and even more sounds, and it also uses a different action that is a little bit higher grade. The action we'll find in the FP-30 today, I believe, is called the PHA-4, and the action that's in the FP-90, if I remember correctly, is called the PHA-50, which is the same action you'd find in the RD-2000, which is Roland's flagship stage piano. So you'll be getting a very good action in that keyboard, and I believe that the action in the FP-30 is only going to be a step or two below that. From what I've seen online, it appears to have actual wooden-sided keys. Not fully wooden keys, but wooden-sided, so it should have a little more heft and a little bit more realism than you would find in a digital piano that only has plastic keys. And I believe the FP-30 is and I think the FP-10 also and the FP-60 all have the same action, so they should also all have wooden keys, wooden-sided keys. So I believe the FP-30 is and the other instruments of the FP line are the only digital pianos in this price point, like under $1,000, that have wooden-sided keys. I might be wrong on it, but this is the only one I've seen so far to have that. I think that's about everything I wanted to mention before I get it out of the box, so let me get it out of the box for you and show you guys what it looks like and give you my opinions of it. Roland kind of does these boxes kind of weird, so I can't really open it up on camera because it says open on this side, please don't open on this side, and you have to like open the box on its side and pull the keyboard out, and it's kind of strange. So I will actually open it up off camera and then just show it to you guys out of the box, so let's go do that. Probably one of the coolest things about running an honest YouTube channel is the fact that I can truly be honest and tell you guys whether or not I think an instrument is worthy of your purchase and whether or not somebody may find it satisfactory. Now, depending on your needs will depend on whether or not you would find the Roland FP-30 satisfactory, but in today's video I'll be telling you guys the things I like about it and the things I don't like about it, and unfortunately there's quite a few things I don't like about it. But first of all, let's start off with the things that I do like about it, and probably the biggest surprise to me is actually the pedal unit. Let me show you that real quick. This is the pedal unit. Yeah, it's this little tiny boxy thing, and typically these little boxy squish style damper pedals are awful. Typically they'll wander all across the floor and you'll have to consciously keep moving your foot around and tracking it across the floor as it wanders and spins sideways and does all kinds of acrobats on the floor, and that can actually really affect your performance. However, at least with the flooring we have here in the studio, that's not the case with this. It actually stays on the floor where it's supposed to be, which is fantastic. Now, depending on your floor surface you have at home, your results may vary, but here in the studio, I'm having excellent luck with it, and it hasn't moved at all since I've been playing with it for about 2 hours, which is absolutely wonderful. So good job, Roland, on that. The rubber they use down here is actually pretty good. With that out of the way, something else I actually enjoy about this instrument is the action. The action on this instrument is on the heavier side, and some of you may find that unsatisfactory, because I know a lot of people on the internet and in the world enjoy a piano or a digital piano that has a light action for a number of different reasons. I'm personally on the more heavier side of things. I like a piano action that has a more heavier, substantial feel, and this definitely has one. Does it truly compare to a real piano? No, not at all. But it comes much closer to the feel, the heaviness, the responsiveness of a real piano than something like the Yamaha P125 does, which has a much lighter kind of thin feeling action, or something like the Casio PXS3000, which, as I've mentioned, is far from perfect as far as the action is concerned. This here has a nice heavy fluid feeling action that I overall like. I feel like when you're playing really, really quietly, it can get a little bit unpredictable when you're playing extremely quietly. It's very, very subtle, and sometimes notes will come out a little bit louder than I anticipated them. Of course, that passage probably sounded fine. To me, there were a few notes that came out a little louder than I wanted them to, but overall, the action of this instrument is quite nice. One thing I did say at the beginning was that I thought the sides of these keys were wooden, and in fact, as you can see when I was playing, they are not wooden. I guess that's reserved for the PHA-50 and not the PHA-4 or 3, whatever is in this keyboard. But regardless, it still has a nice, heavy feel. Again, if you don't like a keyboard with the heavy action, you'll probably be able to rule this one out immediately, but for those of you who are looking for a somewhat more authentic piano experience, the action on this would be an option for you. Those are the things I like about the Roland FP-30. Almost called it the RD-30, it's the FP-30. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll probably know that when I have an instrument that I like, I absolutely gush over it and talk about it for 30 minutes about all the things I like. So the fact that there are two things I like about the FP-30 is probably an indicator that overall, I do not like this instrument. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I was going to be taking a look at this as a practice perspective. How would this be for a practice instrument? And since I mentioned that the action was nice, you'd think that I would say that this is a good practice instrument. And in a way, yeah, if the only thing you're looking at is the piano, the only thing you want a digital piano for is the piano, and you're looking for the cheapest thing possible, this probably would be the best option. However, if you're looking at an instrument that's a little bit flexible, that you can use at home to practice and take out on the road and use on your live locations, whether it's at a friend's house or on a small stage, this is not an option for you. And I'm absolutely blown away by this, because this is a $600 keyboard, but it does not have line outputs. It does not. So you're not going to be able to plug in external speakers. So you can't use this on location. It's a decent looking keyboard, and it has excellent control. You'd be perfectly fine to play just about anything on it. You can even do advanced classical music, and I'll show you that later. So action-wise, it's fine. Sound-wise, it's okay. But attachment-wise, you're not going to be able to plug internal speakers into it, and the built-in speakers are not powerful enough to be able to be used in a venue, even if it's something small like a bar. So this really isn't a good option at all for that, and I'm completely blown away and massively disappointed at the fact that there's no line outputs on this instrument. It's just crazy that Roland didn't put those in. I'd have to imagine that the higher-end FPs, the FP-60 and the FP-90, would have line outputs, but if they don't, that's absolutely insane. And on some of the videos I was watching of this online before I actually got mine, I kind of wanted to hear what it sounded like and see what other people thought about it. I noticed in a lot of the videos I watched that it didn't sound very good. I was like, it sounds plasticky and hollow on the piano sound and just really sounds awful. I was like, if that's all Roland put into it, that's really disappointing. And it's because they can't get the direct line output. They're forced to record with the internal speakers, which aren't honestly the worst things I've heard, but of course are nowhere near as good as getting the pure raw direct signal. So that's why it sounds bad in other reviews. That's why it's not going to sound very good in my review. It's going to sound tinny, hollow, plasticky, and bad. So I can't believe that in a $600 keyboard there's no line outputs. I believe Yamaha's bottom end digital piano, the P-45, the cheapest Yamaha you can buy with line outputs, does not have, the cheapest Yamaha piano you can buy with weighted keys. That's what I meant to say. It does not have line outputs. Everything above it does, as far as I know. This is a $600, and the P-45 is like $400 to $500. This is a $600 keyboard, and it doesn't have line outputs. Blows my mind. Absolutely insane. The other thing I don't like about it is the piano sound. It's not amazing. The sustain's kind of short in the middle range. I mean, it's okay. It works. I've said in other videos that the sound doesn't have to be the best to be a practice instrument, and I do still stand by that. But again, still disappointing, but not its biggest issue. Again, that G, I didn't mean to play that loud, so a little unpredictable in the action, but to me, the higher treble just doesn't quite sing out as much as it should, even on other digital pianos, and it just sounds a little bit, I don't know, muddy, muffled, kind of dull in this region. It sounds like it's being kind of held back. The other region of the acoustic piano sound that sounds kind of hampered is the very low bass down here. Could be the speakers, again, I'm really not sure, but it's really muffled and dull down here. Almost sounds like an upright piano, kind of. Has that kind of boxy, muffled, something off about it kind of sound. The other thing I don't like about it, and one of its other biggest fatal flaws, is the way you interact with the instrument. Now, other keyboards do this too. In fact, the Yamaha P-125, so far my favorite digital piano in this price bracket, has elements of this too, but not to this extent. In the Yamaha P-125, there's elements of the piano that you can access, such as the transpose function, and I think a few others as well. I think you can turn on and off the internal speakers by holding buttons down on the user interface and pushing keys on the keyboard. However, the sounds, the volume, all that stuff is controlled through buttons on the Yamaha P-125. If you want the organ sound, there's an organ button. If you want an electric piano sound, there's an electric piano button. And you can press the same button over and over again to toggle through the 3 or 4 different sounds for each sound category. With the Roland FP-30, there are a piano button, there's an electric piano button, and then an others button. So to get a different variant of the piano, you actually have to hold down this button and push a key. Now, I believe we should have harpsichord? Yeah. Which again, doesn't sound amazing. You get the idea. Using the keys to change the sounds is terrible, and it's my least favorite feature in digital pianos these days. I don't know why people have decided to go for, oh, let's put as few buttons on it as possible rather than have an additional 5 or 10 buttons. It really wouldn't be that hard. And again, the way Yamaha did it, where you push the same button over and over again and it has a little indicator light, if I remember right, to indicate which sound you're on, that's great. That's easy. It's easy to know which sound you're going to be on. With this, it's very difficult to remember. First of all, the other thing I want to talk about is also that Roland's user manuals are not amazing. I found with the RD2000 when I reviewed that, the user manual was convoluted. I mean, this is a simple to operate keyboard, but look at how complicated and busy the owner's manual is. It's just like, look at this wall of text you have to read to know how to use the USB features. I don't know. It just seems, and this isn't USB features. This is stuff for how to use the hidden features in the keys, and it's just this massive wall of text. I don't know. I just feel like there's easier ways of doing that. If there's one thing that the Casio did really well, it was the little quick guide that came with it. Very easy to understand. This, not so much. Anyways, the different sounds of the instrument. Let's run through those real quick, at least as quick as possible. Let's start off with the piano. So to get to the default piano, I gotta hit A0. This is the sound of the default piano. Let's play a few different little passages here of Clair de Lune. We'll play this beginning part, or not the beginning part, but kind of the middle. Not bad. Sounds all right. Let's play my treble test piece. Again, not actually that bad of a piano patch. It's not perfect, and the internal speakers aren't really doing it justice, but it's not a bad sound. There's also another variant of the piano that sounds just about the same. A little brighter, a little more clear up here in the treble. We also have another variant of the piano here. This should be Grand Piano 3. Even a little bit brighter still. And then next up we should have Ragtime Piano. Notice how I have to look at the cheat sheet every time to remember what the sound actually is, of course. That's kind of what that sound would be. And then next up we've got the harpsichord, already demoed. And another variant of the harpsichord, which should be this D. So those are the piano category sounds. So let's move on to the electric piano category. The first default sound here is a Fender Rhodes-esque sound, and this one is actually quite flawed. I might be nitpicking here, but there's about 4 different timbres we have in this range of the keyboard. Now, if you're not familiar with the Fender Rhodes, there was an electric piano from the 60s and 70s that had this really bell-like tone, and it had a growly bass and a sparkly treble, a really, really cool sound. And this really isn't doing it all that much justice. So what's going on here? So if you notice, this B has a completely different voicing than this C. The C is kind of percussive at the beginning and kind of brighter, and the B is more muffled. So below this B, we have kind of a more muffled tone, and above this C, for like 4 notes, we have a more clicky kind of sound. I hope this is coming through, otherwise I look like an idiot. And then after this F sharp completely changes tones again. Notice this? Completely different tone. More brighter, kind of a plinky kind of a sound. And then if we keep going up the keyboard, we change tones again up here. No, notice this. It sounds like a completely different instrument. You hear that? This is more thick and kind of dirty sounding, and then this here is like more clean and clear. And then it changes tones again up here. Right here. So crazy that there's like 6 different voicings. Why can't it be consistent? The Fender Rhodes would be consistent, but this isn't. And then below here, it's pretty consistent. It just kind of slowly becomes more muffled and more cottony as you go down the keyboard. Actually, right here it changes again, actually. I take that back. There's a sudden change again. Here, with these notes, there's a percussive click, and then beyond that, there's not as much of a percussive click at the beginning of each note. Hear that? Those 3, and then these don't. Weird. And then as you go down here, it's really muffled, and there's no punch and growl to it. You have to really hit it hard to get it to growl, and that's not how the Fender Rhodes is at all. So that is very disappointing and very strange. The next sound here is like a DX kind of sound. Not my favorite electric piano sound of all time, but that modeling of it is okay. Next up we have E-Piano-3. Can't remember what this one is. Oh yeah, it's a Wurlitzer. An attempt at one. Very, very faint tremolo there. What's next? We've got clavinet, I think. It should be this C. So, clavinet, that's decent. Next up is vibraphone. Again, very, very, very subtle tremolo there on that vibraphone. Okay, we got celesta. Again, notice this. Remember how I said the sustain on the piano is really short? I got the pedal down. There's no sustain here at all. If this is a real celesta, I'd want nothing to do with it. Because the celesta, a real celesta, has beautiful, almost never-ending sustain up in the treble. And this has none, so that's kind of annoying. And then finally, in the electric piano category, we have the synth bell, which is... No, not that. Where is it? See, this is why I hate the let's hide sounds in the keys functionality. There it is. The exact opposite problem with the celesta. Endless sustain. I didn't even have the pedal down for that. So, again, kind of a mix match of sounds. Really kind of disappointing. Again, I know I've said that the sounds in a practice piano don't have to be the best things, but these are so far from the real thing. It's kind of pathetic. In the others category, we have a number of different sounds, some of which I'll have to turn the volume down for. Here we got strings. Actually kind of like the string pad. We've got another variant of it, which is louder for some reason. Notice that? Oops, didn't change it. It's louder, don't know why. Up next is a harp. Kind of a strange sound to have in there, but sure. Up next, we have Jazz Organ 1, and I'm going to have to turn the volume down, way down to like half, because, of course, the jazz organs are way louder than everything else in the keyboard, of course. Organ sounds actually aren't too bad in this keyboard. I think I gotta turn this down a little bit because it might be peaking. Another big issue I have with digital pianos these days is the fact that the volume differences, like when you have the piano is quiet, typically the electric piano is a little louder and then the organs are really loud. And that's the case here, the organs are really loud. Sorry if it was clipping badly there, but it's really dumb that the organs are so much louder than everything else. Up next, we've got Jazz Organ 2, which is kind of a more raspy version. Not great sounding. Up next, we've got Church Organ 1. That should be this key. You can change the reverb here with this key here, but for some reason, there's not a lot with the church organ sound. You'd think they'd put extra for the church organ sounds because it's meant to be in a church, but no. Up next, we've got Church Organ 2. Not amazing, but... like, beyond this low E, the notes are unusable. Maybe not unusable yet, but... not amazing. Up next, we've got accordion, which is kind of fun. Is it, what, this G? No. This E? Yeah, there we go. Actually kind of fun. We've got choirs. This should be choir. And then up next, this one's really fun here. This is a sound that Roland's been recycling since at least 2008, the jazz scat sound. It's fun, but they've been reusing it since 2008 because I bought my Roland at Tillier, Oregon, sometime around then, and that has the exact same sound on it. Up next, we got a couple of choir variations. We got some synth pads and just guitars and what have you. So not too much exciting in the others category. The last one's kind of fun here. It's like a voice thing. But beneath that, you've got some basses and so kind of cool. But overall, the sounds in the FP-30 are not amazing, and the way you interact with them is really bad, in my opinion. You saw how many times I was like, oh, I think there should be this sound. I hope this is that sound. Yeah, that's why I don't like that feature. I don't know why. Half of these sounds aren't even things that you'd use all that often. I mean, an accordion, a harp, you've got some guitars, pads. I mean, okay, pads maybe, but, you know, a lot of the sounds are things people won't even use all that often, and then they've crammed them all into the key bed of the instrument, which is kind of annoying. One nice feature about this instrument is that it has a metronome, which is a really great practice feature. I like that, but again, you have to interact with the keys to change the number of beats, or not number of beats, but the time signature. So you can hear there it's 2/4, and then here it's going to be 3 beats in a measure, and then here it's going to be none for kind of practicing techniques and stuff. So that is kind of cool, but also a little bit disappointing that you got to interact with the keys to change the time signature. Other than that, that's kind of about it for the FP-30. There's not really a lot to talk about. Overall, it's honestly rather disappointing. Just the sounds in it, the way you interact with the instrument, and the fact that there's no line outputs in a $600 instrument make it rather disappointing. However, if you're only going to be using this at home and you really aren't asking very much from an instrument, this might be an okay option for you, but don't think you're going to be able to be using it on the road, on location, for anything serious at all, for anything even approaching the border of being professional. No. If you want to take it to grandma's house, you want to take it to your buddy's house to have an impromptu jazz session in the garage, that's great. But you're not really going to be playing out in public in any sort of a venue with this at all, because that's not going to be possible to do. However, again, for practicing, it would be okay. It actually can handle some advanced classical music. So we can actually do that just fine. So as a purely a piano-based practice instrument, actually that's a thing people have asked me a lot, is what's an instrument that's only focused on piano that I can buy? And while this isn't the closest accurate representation to a piano money can buy, I think its best feature is being a practice piano instrument and nothing else. The other sounds, in my opinion, are a complete letdown. The default piano one is okay, and the action is definitely good for practicing the piano on. One feature it has that's kind of neat is the twin piano feature, and this is for any of you teachers watching. This would be a good teaching piano, because what you can do is you can split the keyboard into 2 identical pianos that should be the same pitch. So you can have one up here and one down here. So it's the same thing. So if you're practicing with a student, you can play scales in the same octave together on the piano. The student will hear it the same way you will be hearing it, and I believe you can also shift the octaves of either one if you want to be able to do that. So if a teacher is looking for an instrument that's not going to distract their student and be very easy to use, here you go. This is perfect. When I was taking piano lessons in the very early days, I learned on a digital piano. My teacher, my first piano teacher, had a digital piano that had a big, it was probably like a Yamaha Clavinova, I don't remember. It had a big old screen in the middle, and you could just poke it and select sounds. And obviously, that was all I wanted to do. You can't do this, especially if the student's over here, they can't reach the sounds. So a teacher looking for a basic practice instrument that they can practice together on their student with when they come to lessons, here's your option. actually that's a really solid thing this keyboard could be used for. But for someone who's looking for an instrument that they can practice on at home and use on location, it's an absolute no-no, and I could not recommend it at all for that. For someone who's looking for a very, very basic practice instrument and looking for something that can closely replicate a piano on a budget, it's also not a bad idea. Not a bad option. But it is very limited, especially for the price you pay, and I just don't like the way that you select the sounds. I don't like many of the sounds themselves, and there are a number of flaws, unfortunately, with this digital piano. There's a couple more I wanted to touch on before I leave, so let me do that real quick. Before I move on to the last few small flaws about this digital piano, I wanted to briefly touch on those of you who are looking for an instrument to use as a MIDI controller. A lot of you guys have come to me saying, what's an instrument you would use as an entry-level MIDI controller that feels like a piano but is affordable? I think this would also work for that, because its inboard features are a bit disappointing, but it does have 2 USB ports in the back that you could use to connect to your computer and create sounds with through the computer. And the action in this keyboard for the price is honestly quite excellent. I do like it a lot. It feels pretty close to a piano. I'd say if like a piano is 10, the ultimate piano action is 10, this is maybe somewhere around a 6. It's decently close. So, and other keyboards a lot of the times like a 2 or 3. So if you're looking for a realistic piano-ish feeling action for use as a MIDI controller, I think this would be a good option. But now for the little flaws. One of them is the music desk. Now, I really appreciate the fact that it came with a music desk. A lot of the digital pianos I've reviewed haven't come with one, and the way it just kind of pops in and out is kind of cool and also kind of weird. So if you want to remove it real quick, you can. If you want to put it back in real quick, you can. However, it doesn't lean back very far, so I've noticed that the sheet music kind of likes to kick out and slide forwards, and the front lip is basically non-existent. So if your sheet music does slip, it's just going to slide onto the keys at least some of the time, and that would be annoying if you're playing. If I want to put up, yay, let's do some Clair de Lune, you know, this one's bowing out and this one's kind of, you know, I mean, it works, but it needs to lean back farther, than it would rest against the back of the music desk and not really be that big of an issue. Also why they couldn't have tilted this front lip up by like maybe 5 degrees, 10 degrees. That would have been a nice idea too. Also, weird feature about the music desk, not a flaw, just a weird feature, is that it's actually curved. Look at that. Isn't that strange? It's like one of those Samsung curved monitors, except it's a music desk. So that's kind of an odd little feature about it. Not a flaw, just something odd about it. It also is kind of short. I haven't noticed an issue yet with music wanting to flop over the back of it, but over time the music might develop kind of a curl, so you might want to put something stiff behind it. Not really sure though. But again, if your music slips, it will just do that. I kind of have to make it do it in this case, but just as a proof of concept, if the music slips forward, it's really easy for it to slide off of the music desk. Not great either. One of my favorite keyboard music desk designs is the MP11 SE. It has a massive front lip that also isn't perfect. It kind of gets in the way of turning pages, but your sheet music isn't going to slip off of that like it will on here. Final thing I wanted to touch on, not a flaw, just one little small thing. Actually, there's one other thing too. But the action is very nicely consistent. I have 59 grams here of these graduated gram weights, and as you can see here, with both the black keys and the white keys, they will go down nicely. It could probably be a little bit less, but if I take a couple weights off of it, it doesn't always go down on every single note, so there's some very slight inconsistencies between note to note, sometimes maybe a gram. But if I, like that note there is a little stiffer, didn't go down. If I poke it a little bit, it will. So 59 grams is the touch weight, at least in the middle. I do not believe it's a graded action. Doesn't seem to be, because that should be heavier and then this should go down faster. Maybe it is slightly graded, because that high C went down a little faster. But 59 grams is the average touch weight of the keys, and it seems to be the down weight, and it seems to be very consistent between the black keys and the white keys. So that flaw I found with the Casio PX-S3000, where the black keys were radically lighter than the white keys by like 13 grams, is not present in this instrument. The true final thing I wanted to touch on is the fact that this keyboard is really thick. It's literally thick. It's really tall. So you're going to have to boost up your bench a little bit to be able to play this on a typical traditional music stand. Another reason why it wouldn't be the best option, even if it had line outputs, another reason why it wouldn't be the best option for using on location would probably be that. Roland does have a couple of stands you can use, as well as a triple pedal unit for this keyboard too, and that would probably put it at a lower height. I imagine the reason they made it so bulky possibly is because they wanted people to use it with their proprietary music, keyboard stand. If I lower my bench down here to the normal height I normally use it as for piano, as you can see, it's a bit low. So that is a kind of an odd quirk, very small flaw, mostly just a quirk of the FP-30, the fact that it's really tall, and you're gonna have to boost up your seat just a little bit to be able to play normally on it. That, I think, is truly everything I wanted to cover with the Roland FP-30, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Again, my goal is to keep these videos honest, and when I find flaws, I do want to talk about them. This instrument is not as fatally flawed as the Casio PXS-3000. It is very, very playable, but it still does have some flaws. I think this one's biggest flaw is the fact that there's no line outputs on a $600 instrument. In my opinion, that's not really acceptable and is kind of awful. Otherwise, if it wasn't for that, I'd be able to recommend it a bit stronger, even though a lot of the sounds in it are kind of mediocre, especially that Rhodes sound. That one really bugs me. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. For those of you looking for a very, very basic, bare bones digital piano, the FP-30 or even the FP-10, which has the same exact action, would be a really great idea for you. Teachers who are looking for a really simple instrument that's not going to distract your student when they come over to your teaching location, this would also be a great idea too, especially with the twin piano function, which may or may not be handy. I'm not a teacher, so I'm not sure how useful that would be, but I'd imagine it would be useful. However, for those of you looking for an instrument that would be very versatile and be able to be used at home and on location, not the best idea. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might want to go check out my channel. I've got lots of cool videos of pianos, keyboards, digital pianos, organs, and all kinds of other cool stuff too. So if you like any of the sounds of that, you might want to go check that out. And if you do, thank you very much. If you want to subscribe and you're not already, you might want to do that too, to stay in tune with all the stuff that's going to be coming out in the future. And if you do that, thank you very much. Make sure to stay tuned for more digital piano reviews in the future. I'm working on getting all of the ones that I possibly can that are new to the market. So if any of that sounds cool, might want to think about subscribing. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.